Well, hello everybody. I'm not usually on this side. I'm usually on the other side. So this is fun for me to finally say, welcome, hello, to Firmly AEW. And today, I am your host, Drew Nicholas, and I am joined by somebody who describes himself as Aldi brand JPJ, Mr. Dan Brown. Hello, Dan.
I'm just as good as the real JPJ. I'm going to be filling in for between two beards. I'm not. That was totally worth it. That was totally worth going through my garage finding this thing for a 2-second joke.
So you've played Santa before, I'm guessing.
Yes. This is my wife's grandfather's Santa suit, and all the kids in her family started catching on that every time Santa shows up, Grandpa leaves, but they wouldn't notice that their cousin-in-law would be leaving. So for many years, I've been doing Santa Claus around the holiday season, and I still got the suit.
Well, that's very nice. Awesome. So we are here, as we know, JPJ is on a plane right now, flying to Indianapolis for WWE's Royal Rumble event with Pluggo and other wonderful people in the wrestling media space. And today, I am here because I am not going to the Royal Rumble. And I'm here with Dan today, and we are going to discuss AEW Dynamite, and we're going to get into one or two things from Collision as well, because there was something very noteworthy that happened on Collision. Maybe one of the more noteworthy things of the year for AEW, besides their move to Max. Timeless Toni Storm has returned, and it wasn't in the way that I expected it to happen, but I'm really happy that it happened because, Dan, when she returned on that show, I felt like, they talk about how the feeling is restored and all that stuff. I think the feeling for the women's division, at least, was restored for me on Saturday when Toni Storm returned as Timeless. I'm just going to quickly go into what happened, so this way, we can discuss that. So there was already a planned segment for rookie Toni Storm and Mariah May to have a chat. So Toni Storm came out, and then rookie Toni, Mariah May came out first, and then Toni Storm came out. And Toni was doing the thing, I don't know if you remember, Dan, when Mariah May first came onto the scene and was doing her backstage.
She was a big Toni Storm fan.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so like a fanatic. And I remember, when what was it, like her first or second match Mariah May had as a contracted AEW talent, where she came out dressed as old Toni Storm.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm gonna let you finish. I got feelings about this too, but I like where you're going.
Yes. So they started to, and JPJ and I had gone back and forth and saying, okay, what do we think this is going to be? Do we think this is going to be Toni Storm with amnesia, or is it going to be Toni Storm with playing the role of rookie Toni Storm, and then we'll eventually reveal, oh, well, this was a ruse all along, and she's actually been Timeless Toni Storm the whole time. Thankfully, It was not amnesia. If
Yeah.
it was amnesia, I don't know how they would have really been able to pull off that, oh, like, all of a sudden she gets knocked out and she just remembers everything again. I think that would have been a little cheesy,
I think
personally.
you would need more of like a concussion angle in order to pass that off, and you really didn't get that. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah, it was
You
really
just
just she lost the title at All In and then walked away sad, and that was it, and then she later on, when they were promoting Grand Slam at first, um, they were like, "Oh, she's retired now." Like, she actually came on as Timeless Toni Storm promoting Grand Slam in Australia and announced that she was retiring.
yeah.
So, there would be no logical gap, no logical point to go, "Oh, okay, so this happened, so logically now she has amnesia." It just wouldn't have made sense.
Yeah, so I thought and this is me, and I those of you who know me know I'm not really into some of the most silliness in wrestling. However, I will say if it's done right, I'm all for it. The way how I would have booked the silliness, which again wouldn't have happened, I would have liked to see Tony Storm kind of come back and like kind of do like this like a little bit like a losing streak kind of thing, and then all of a sudden you see her
Mhm.
talking in the back and she's talking about how she's feeling, and then you pan it over and there's Dr. Stevie Richards ready to help her bring out Tony timeless Tony Storm again. I'm sure I'm the only one in the world who would have been like, this is great television, but that's just what I wanted. uh Lawrence, you're wrong. This is the real JPJ, right? Bring it right
Yes.
back.
You
Okay.
look
So,
it's like you could be twins, honestly.
mhm.
Uh,
I'm wearing my most Boston hat I have right now. I have the Worcester Woo Sox to honor Mr. Uh, as Mr. Macho Man Randy Savage will call him, first name J, last name PJ. Who's safe flight, by the way. But yeah, I just really wanted. I would have held off a little bit longer bringing back Timeless Tony Storm. I didn't think it really made sense, but then again, that character really doesn't make sense. And that's not me knocking that character. That's just me saying in pro wrestling, sometimes we're allowed to go into the realm of not real as long as you're
yeah.
over. It's
Yeah, right.
I mean, Funaki could never do the people's elbow because nobody would sit there in that position long enough for Funaki to hit it. But when you're over like The Rock, people just kind of look past that.
Exactly.
And I think with the AEW audience, they're willing to look past that a little bit for Tony Storm.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say honestly, Timeless Tony Storm has gotten over to a level that you in the modern era of wrestling really get over. Like, she's gotten to that, like, The Rock-esque of the 90s type of overness, where every week for, gosh, I think she was doing that character for a good 8 months, maybe 8, 9 months. Um, she was sometimes the most talked about thing weekly because everyone, and of course, there were some people that weren't a fan of it because of the silliness, like you said, but there were shows that I personally went to where she was getting the loudest reaction,
Yeah,
and there's just something about that character, even though it makes no sense, as you're saying, it's silly, Undertaker-esque, like, "Hello, it's not the '40s. Why is this character over when it's not the
yeah,
'40s?" But there's just something about, I think personally, how I feel is that I think she puts such a devotion and energy into it that it works. It just works, and you can tell that she Toni Storm is actually enjoying playing this character. And I feel like what a lot of not a lot, that might be an overstatement, but sometimes in wrestling, you see a a person, whether they're playing a character or not, standing in front of the camera, and they just don't have that delivery. They don't have that look in their eyes. Like, you can look in their eyes sometimes, and you just see, like, you don't even believe the things that you're saying right now, you know? And it's with
Yeah.
the timeless character, I think what a lot of people what it resonated with a lot of people is that Toni Storm, the person, is living this character and feels like this is the most fun that she has had in her wrestling career.
Well, I mean, I do think this definitely kind of dates back, and I personally I don't like using a lot of wrestling terms because I'm not a pro wrestler. That's not my world. Um, but I'm gonna use the word kayfabe here. When you go back in the days of the 60s, 70s, 80s, where all those wrestlers kept kayfabe into their real life. I mean, I can see someone like Toni Storm going to a Walmart and maybe not going in full character, but being in character enough so that if somebody were to see her, they're feeling like they're getting that real life experience,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
kind
right.
of thing. And some of that is what's missing in wrestling. Is you? I'm watching you, but I don't believe you are this person that I'm watching.
Mhm.
Like nobody really believed the Undertaker was a zombie, but you did believe that like he had that darker kind of personality to
Mhm.
where if you saw him in an airport, if you saw him in a restaurant, you might not want to go up to him because he's gonna scare the hell out of you.
Right.
So for Tony Storm, I think, and again, I'm not the biggest fan of silly, but if you do it well, she clearly has never phoned in a promo. She's never phoned in a performance doing timeless Tony Storm. Uh, I'm happy to see it back. I think good things are going to happen. I again, I don't want to say anything, but like too rude to somebody. But I feel like Mariah May's character, what her character is typical blonde wrestler copy and paste. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but and I'm
I
not
d
saying this
okay,
is what
I'll
she's going to be forever, but for right now, it's she. We'll talk about her promo a little bit later. It didn't do anything for me.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
I don't disagree with you there,
yeah,
honestly. I think that Mariah's the thing with Mariah in this whole storyline is that once she won the title, and this has been something that JPJ and I have talked about multiple times with a lot of even the most recent champions, or now one of the former champions in the tag champions. Um, Once somebody who organically got over with the crowd gets the title, whether it's the TNT title, whether it's the AEW World Tag titles, or the
mhm,
women's title in this instance, um, they're not really and at least I won't say this for Mariah. Daniel Garcia and Private Party, when Private Party were the tag champions, were not really featured in a way that you would think they'd be featured because they were the guys that were getting loud reactions and everyone was happy that they finally won the championship. Like, Daniel Garcia wins the TNT title. Immediately, he's in the Continental Classic tournament, losing,
yeah,
never defending the actual title that he won. He's instead fighting for a different title completely. And then Private Party win the tag titles from the Young Bucks. Immediately, they're on um, that press scrum that they do after they won the titles, talking up how much this means to them, how much even they're here. I'm in Brooklyn, and their local school that they had like lived around the corner from, the wrestling club. I don't know if you're aware of those kids, the TWC club, and they go to
Sure.
events, and they get wrestlers to come, and it's such an awesome thing. Um, they talked about how much it means, as a young kid growing up to see guys that look like them win titles on national television on pay-per-views, and they go and see these kids, and it really means something to them, and it's touching to them. And then they win the titles, and what happened? They were barely featured on television, and their second title defense they lose to Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah, and it's a little bit. It's a lot on the booker, and I hold Tony Khan's feet to the fire as a fan.
Yeah. We
I
can
mean,
call this a state of the AEW address.
yeah, and I'm going to address something, Mr. JPJ, who somebody I've become a fan of. I've become a fan of your show, and I'm honored to be on it. Something that he said that I disagree with, where he was like, if AEW's in your town, you should want to go see it. I agree that you should want to go see live pro wrestling if you're a wrestling fan, but AEW is ran by, however you want to say it, either the son of a billionaire or a billionaire. Whichever way you want to word it, that's your own prerogative. But he has all the ability to put on a 5-star production. I don't mean 5 stars in Dave Meltzer rating. I mean, you have the money to put together the best kind of show you possibly can. And if you're not doing that, that's on you. It's one thing for me to be like, I'm over here in Cleveland where it's Mega Pro Wrestling out in Elyria, where, yeah, if you have the opportunity, you should want to go support independent wrestling. Absolutely. AIW, absolutely go support them. This is the first time, I didn't realize this, but WWE's coming to Cleveland on Monday night. I didn't realize this till very recently. And this was the first time after I saw that where I was like, you know what? Let me see how much tickets cost. Because ever since I went to, the last show I paid to go see was WrestleMania 33 in Orlando. That was the last show I paid money to. My best friend surprised me with tickets to my birthday. We got second row seats. Monday Night Raw in I think it was 2018. Was that the build up to Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle wrestling Triple H and Stephanie at WrestleMania? I think it was.
That may have been 2017.
Well,
Or it might be,
2017.
I think you're right, actually.
Yeah, so it's 2018. Because we
Yeah,
just got, my wife and I just got married. We just went, we went there. You can see us on camera when Kane and John Cena are fighting through the crowd, and because they walk right in front of us, so it was pretty cool. But that was the last WWE show I had been to, and the reason is because their product was so bad for so long. I'm like, I'm not going to invest my own personal money. I'll watch your show for free. I'll, as long as the network's $10 a month, I'll watch that, because there's a lot of other things on the network that I really do watch. AEW, I'm sorry, you've been around for 5 years. You're not the new kid on the block anymore. You've never, because of the money behind you, you've never been the little engine that could. We're not talking about the same thing as TNA trying to get off the ground here. We're not talking about Ring of Honor trying to stay in business. We're talking about a well-funded organization who from the start had no reason to be anything but successful. And we'll talk about it as we talk about this show here. Things that I liked, things I didn't necessarily care for. I'm not going to go full Jimmy Cornette on this show, except I am going to give one person a nickname, but I'm gonna let that time come when it comes. That's the one corny thing I'm going to do.
I am eagerly anticipating that.
Yes.
Also, by the way, we are at the 20-minute mark, if you couldn't tell the time, so you can let those cursors fly.
I saw here.
Good.
I'm going to do the Mick Foley. If you've ever been to Mick Foley's comedy show, he drops one F-bomb at the very end of the show, but he keeps like building up to it. So he just goes, with these mother but at the end he drops it, and it's very gratifying because who doesn't love Mick Foley? Who doesn't love swear words? Who wouldn't love Mick Foley swearing? Um, kind of went off in
Yeah.
a million different
No,
directions.
no, that's fine. It's I
That's why
told you
people
before
can't
we
stop watching.
started.
Yeah.
I told you before we started we were gonna kind of. I started with the Toni Storm thing, but I did before we talk about Dynamite want to get into this. So I'm glad that you said that because
Yeah. So
um
I look at some of these people, like Hangman Page, we saw for what 5 seconds on the show, maybe 10.
yeah,
Okay, one of their biggest
about
stars.
10 seconds.
I get that. As a fan that reads the dirt sheets and has been, I mean, this isn't even dirt sheets. This is what was thrown right in front of us, kind of thing. You know, from the mouths themselves. Um, I still look at Hangman Page being like the reason why AEW has had as sharp of the decline as it has these past couple years is because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about Colt Cabana during a live in ring. Literally, it was that point where you can then track where things went south, went south a lot faster, and then things have just kind of plateaued at the bottom here. We'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny that you mentioned that because 2 weeks ago. So for those, I don't know if for those that are watching right now, and by the way, who's in the chat right now, I thank you very much. We've seen Lawrence, David, Johnny. Good morning to you as well. Scott, good morning to you. I've been checking that. I haven't been ignoring you guys. We JPJ and I, we talked 2 weeks ago because last week JPJ was joined by Chris Mueller of Bleacher Report. Which, thank you very much, Chris, who I'm good friends with. I'm very thankful that you were able to fill in for me last week. 2 weeks ago, towards the end of the show, I'm thinking, okay, you know, we're at like an hour, almost hour and 40 minutes. Like, okay, you know, everything was good. And Dynamite that week wasn't that bad. And I'm about ready to sign off. And then JPJ hits me with like 10 minutes long of Jon Moxley quotes. I'm just like, oh no. I thought we were done. And okay, here we're gonna do this now. So you know, he's going on and Jon is talking about how important storytelling is and pretty much contradicting every single thing that's going on AEW television up to that point, because there is something interesting when we get to it that I'm going to talk about involving Jon Moxley. He is on our thumbnail today, and he is in our title, so we're going to spend some time on him today. I actually I think went on my legitimate first rant. I'm not known as the ranter. JPJ is known as the ranter. But he was kind of like purposefully, in a sense, needling me a little bit to get this reaction from me. And I kind of blew up on the state of, I wouldn't even just say of AEW, but on the man that we're mentioning a couple times so far, Tony Khan, who has, I think, good intentions. I legitimately think that he has good intentions, but has his hand singularly in too many cookie jars. Like there's the creative side and there's the business side, and then he's got all his other projects that he does: football, soccer, or English football, and you know, it's just it seems like he personally, no knock, and I said this then and I'm saying it now, by all accounts, I have never known Tony Khan to be a bad person. Everyone says wonderful things about him. So I mean, cannot
even look at what he did for Dutch
say,
Mantel. He
Mhm.
donated
I
$5,000
can't
to
suddenly
Dutch
say
Mantel.
that he is a bad person. You know, But the thing that I can critique, if I can critique anything, is that I see what has been going on behind the scenes and sometimes on camera as well,
Yeah.
and go, you have got to be a better boss, because there
Yeah.
are things going on that, and specifically addressing what I had mentioned 2 weeks ago, when I found out that not just that Jon Moxley thinks storytelling in his own special way, and then this is the story that we've been getting, which totally contradicted his comments in that interview. I then went on a little mini rant that day, and then the night prior when I was on the Mark Order podcast with him, um, where I found out that Darby Allin was going to be out for a number of months because he
Mount
is going to be
Everest, right?
climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, so this is the story going into Full Gear and World's End, where Darby is being positioned really as like the guy to take down Jon Moxley eventually. But Mount Everest is more important. So he's going to go and climb Mount Everest instead of win the world title in the company that he loves so much. And
Well, I
I
mean, this
understand that
yeah.
climbing. Well, I just want to say first before you say what you're going to say.
Yeah.
I understand that climbing Mount Everest isn't something that you can just go, hey, you know what? It's Thursday morning. I'm going to go climb Mount Everest now. It's not like walking around the block. It's not like driving to Philadelphia 2 hours away. It's not like getting on a plane and going to Los Angeles and spending time there, going to another country, or, you know, it's a grueling process that you need to train months for. It's not
Yeah.
something you can just go, "Oh, there's the mountain. I'm gonna go and climb it right now." I just go,
Yeah.
you know, it's not something that you can just do. So I get that it is a dream for a lot of people, and it's something that you need to train for, you need to be prepared for. But when you're in a storyline on a wrestling show and you're being positioned as the top guy to take down what is the big bad of this company, the evil, the bloodline, the corporation, the whatever, this is like the top positioned bad guy, and you're the guy that the head of the company wants to put the title on. Mount Everest can wait.
He's Sid Vicious without the body, because we all know the story that Vince wanted to make, and I make comparisons between Tony Khan and Vince McMahon for many reasons, and I compare Vince McMahon to Curt Schilling in this situation. And I don't know how much you know about baseball, but Curt Schilling should
A
absolutely
little bit, but
be
not
in
that
the
much.
Baseball Hall of Fame. And one day when I go to Cooperstown and I take my son with me, and I could point out Curt Schilling's busts, and I could probably spend 10 minutes on 10 business days. Jesus. I can spend 10 minutes on how he's one of the greatest pitchers that's ever existed, but then I can spend a half hour about how he's one of the most disgusting human beings on the face of the planet. I can spend all day talking about Vince McMahon in a good way, and I could spend the next 2 weeks talking about how he's one of the worst human beings that's ever existed. So I when I make these references, I want people to understand, like, I am not a Vince McMahon supporter in any form. The wrestling business in 2025 is certainly better without him. The world is better with him shoved underneath, put in the basement, as CM Punk said. But Darby's doing what Sid Vicious did when they said, "Hey, do you you're going to be the next Hogan?" You know what, man? That's great, but I got softball. Listen, if you want to be the world's greatest softball player, Sid, great. And quite frankly, I think we can kind of put we can kind of put Sid in one of those realms of, did he have the best career for what he actually wanted? The guy essentially treated softball like it was his main job and wrestling like it was his softball, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he got the best of both worlds. Good for him. Maybe this is what Darby wants. I know this much for a fact. I don't know what Darby Allin's actual age is. I'm closer to 40 than I am 30. I can tell you that there's times where I wake up and just go, man, you wasted so much time on some shit, and you kind of wish you can go back. And I think what we're starting to see with Jeff Hardy
I'm
saying,
33
man,
and I say that. Okay. So
but yeah, but like we're seeing Jeff Hardy come out now going, man, if I just got out of my own way, I could have been bigger than John Cena. And is this what Darby Allin, if somebody can put that in terms of Darby Allin to understand, I don't know who that person would be, but if you can say, are you willing to give up being the face of AEW so you can go climb Mount Everest? Because if you are, best of luck. But man, there's a line of guys on the indies who would be willing to kill you to take this spot.
Yeah, and that's really how I feel too. And nothing, and Darby again, another person who I've not heard bad things about. He seems to be just a genuinely nice person, loves the wrestling business. But there's
You
got to be
obviously
that
never read
one.
Cora Jade's tweet.
Oh well, yeah. Okay, so there's other things,
Yes.
to the side. But I was just like, listen, Darby. Okay, so in my anger 2 weeks ago, I was like, Darby wants to go kill himself on Mount Everest. It's not a guarantee that anybody. I mean, there have been some deaths from Mount Everest climbing, but from what it seems I've read, it's not because of the way that he's doing it, where he's actually doing it the right way of training with a professional, and they're going to go up together. And it's not like this is like, oh, some douchebag is like, hey, I want to climb Mount Everest, and does little to no preparation, and then they end up dying from it. So, I recognize that was wrong of me to say 2 weeks ago, and I apologize for that. But when we're talking about this as a business, about AEW as a business, we know that to get to the spot that Darby Allin was going to be positioned as, and I'm not going to say going to be, I'm sure that it's still that he is in that position because Tony Khan has allowed him to go and take 5 months off to go and climb Mount Everest. This isn't the time that it should be happening, and there should be someone. I don't know what Sting and Darby's relationship is off camera, but it shouldn't have to come from Sting. It should come from Tony Khan, his boss, where you say, and this was my rant 2 weeks ago, hey, Darby, I know you want to climb Mount Everest right now, but I want to put my world title on you because you're going to be the guy to take down Jon Moxley. Tough shit.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to climb Mount Everest right now.
I'm holding you to the contract I signed you to, and I'm paying you a lot of money to do. And this kind of goes back to again, something with Vince. Do you think, what would Vince McMahon's reaction be if John Cena in 2013, we'll just say, showed up to television on a motorcycle for the first time? And now it's one thing for Undertaker. Undertaker built that trust, and Undertaker's an actual biker. But like, let's say John Cena pulled up the Monday Night Raw in a motorcycle. Do you think somebody would have told Vince McMahon in a production meeting, hey, Cena just pulled up on a motorcycle, and he probably would have got up and went, John, we base $100 million, like we make $100 million off of you every year. We can't sacrifice you being on a motorcycle, kind of thing. And then Ryback pulls up on a motorcycle and he goes, hey, don't worry about that helmet, Ryback. You can just, no, don't, you go do whatever you want. It's, you protect your investments.
At the end of the day, as the boss of a wrestling company, I'm happy that Tony Khan does not take a lot of the steps that Vince did.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, sometimes you've got to do a little bit of the steps that Vince did. Just you got to be more in basically in two most important ways is you've got to tell the talent what they need to be doing 100% because you're the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And when there are incidents, you have to take care of those incidents. You cannot leave them to other people. You're the boss.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm going to tie in
if
one
he
more
fixed
thing.
those two things,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I want to tie in one more thing because as you said that, that also reminded me of, yes, we're talking firmly AEW, but this is related. How did Monday Night Raw close this week?
Oh, well, the two
Cody
biggest
and CM
stars that
Punk.
AEW had. Pretty much.
A year ago when they did that promo in the ring, I watched that and I was angry at Tony Khan. I was angry at the Bucks. I was angry at Omega. I was angry at Hangman Page. I was angry at Jack Perry because AEW needs to be that truly alternative to WWE. It needs to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
And I'm watching that thinking this should have been the biggest segment in AEW history. That would have been a segment that on Dynamite, could you have seen maybe not 2 million people tuning in, but 1.5? First time they got 1.5 viewers since they since what, their debut episode?
Since Punk's Rampage debut, I think.
Yeah. I think Punk's Rampage, and I could be wrong, I think Punk's Rampage did 1.2, which still, people tuning in at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, incredible.
on SummerSlam weekend after a SmackDown.
Yes, absolutely.
That's something.
So I watched that and I got a little more angry. Hold on one second. What's up, JVJ?
Yes, that is JPJ. I hope you watched the beginning of the show to see him wearing that because that was very funny.
Thank you. I don't know. I just I mean there's things that I'm happy that we're talking about this. Tony Khan needs to do better. Tony Khan needs to be a boss. Tony Khan needs to demand more out of his talent. He needs someone there who actually knows the wrestling business. And this is something I've gotten into arguments with other friends, wrestling fans about, where I'm not saying it needs to be WWE minded wrestling business, but it's like, dude, you have Jim Ross available at your fingertips. You had Arn Anderson. Is Jake Roberts even a part of AEW anymore? Is he still collecting a check?
He is, yes.
Unbelievable. When
He
was the
hasn't
last time
been
he
on
was on
TV as
TV?
much, but he.
Holy cow!
Yeah, he
I
is
was
still
just
there.
thinking
Though.
about that too. Yeah, it's how many they had. Tully Blanchard. You had people who have made a great career in the wrestling business. Go to them. Hey, what am I doing wrong here? What's going on? And if somebody doesn't want to listen to them, let them go. Let them go. Hey, like I just said about millions of people willing to kill Darby Allin on the indies, maybe not millions, a few tens of thousands, at least tens of thousands of
Every
wrestlers who would,
single male indie wrestler all over the world should want to be in Darby Allin's position.
Well, I mean, it's something where, as a comedian, there's people I've seen who are at that, next level, and I'm just like, you're pissing away such an opportunity right now, and it's frustrating, and it's like they have the representation behind them, they have the money put behind them, they have this train of positivity pushing them to success, and I just watch them just take it all for granted, and it's mind blowing how that you get to that. Now, maybe that's because I don't have that. You know what I mean? It's easier to point fingers when you're not the one wearing those particular shoes in that moment. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. Tony Khan, I agree with Drew. Be a better boss. You need to be. You have to be. We want a strong AEW.
Yeah, and that is the state of the AEW address.
There you go.
So really quickly also from Collision, Samoa Joe defeated Nick Wayne. That was a nice match. Kazuchika Okada and Commander was surprisingly fun.
Yeah.
Okada doesn't always lock in every single match that he has, but Commander is something special, and I was really happy to see the two of them, and I enjoyed that match. I ended up enjoying that.
Yeah, he Okada, I don't want to say he's been a disappointing run, but I've expected a lot more. As a fan, I've expected a lot more out of Okada.
We had the return of Cool Hand Ange, who just had a child with Ruby Soho. Congratulations to them. They didn't end up winning, unfortunately. But the Undisputed Kingdom won against Daddy Magic, Cool Hand Ange, and Daniel Garcia. There was some teasing between Daniel Garcia and Lee Moriarty, which ends up being a match, I believe, on upcoming Collision. I did look at the spoilers for that because they taped it after Dynamite last night. So that'll be an interesting thing going forward. Hologram was teased once again. He got injured a couple months back, so it'll be nice to see him back.
Always want to see somebody
so
come
the
back
House
from
of Black.
injury. Yes. You always want to see somebody come back from injury. You don't.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think about the whole House of Black now, Hounds of Hell, I believe they're being called now, thing? So it seems like Malachi is no longer.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's officially gone yet, or if he's just off TV for now until his contract runs out. Do we, the Royal Rumble is in 2 days. That's usually when people make surprising returns.
Yeah,
maybe that's going to happen.
I'm thinking I don't see Tony Khan being the kind of person that would book Malachi Black up to his contract and on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were kind of like
okay, good.
Freezing a little bit, but I could hear you mostly.
I wasn't sure that was me or you, but I don't see Tony Khan booking Malachi Black up until his contract ending. He's the kind of guy that just lets you sit at home for the year kind of thing. So
right.
If
We've
Malachi
seen that
Black's
proven.
Yes, time and time again. So if Malachi Black is jumping to WWE to once again become Aleister Black, I would think that it's going to be more so after WrestleMania, like him making his return after WrestleMania than at the Rumble. Just my own 2 cents. I could be wrong.
What's going to happen?
Yeah, I could be wrong.
I don't know. I don't know when his
times.
contract is officially up.
I don't think any of us really know when anyone's contract is up. We just kind of go based off everyone's word. And with AEW not being a public company, who knows who's actually under contract? Who knows what extra deals they're getting? Neither here nor there. Our wrestlers are going to have health insurance. And then you're issuing out the same bullshit contracts that Vince issued out for years. So neither here nor there.
Yeah. Not exactly the alternative that they claim to be in that specific instance, at least. But
which, by the way, yeah, I was going to say, you're not using half your roster. And I'm not saying like, hey, fire people, like that's a good idea, but let them go do something else. Take the money that you're saving from all those people, and for your top 20 guys and women, whatever, hey, you got health insurance. Use that money and then you can still book people on the independent contractor basis. Hey, we don't know how long we're actually going to use you for. Here's 20 dates, guaranteed, whatever. Anyway.
What I do specifically like, of course, about AEW is that a lot of the talent are able to go and do other things while still being contracted to the company. It took WWE until Triple H took over, essentially, to sort of sprinkle that very small, only with specific promotions.
Yeah.
Where Noah and another Japan
Didn't he do it with the
AJPW or
GCW last year at WrestleMania
oh, GCW,
with
right, yeah.
Shayna Baszler? Yeah.
Yeah, she did Bloodsport.
Yes.
Yeah. So, they're just like they're sprinkling it in very small areas, whereas AEW, you can do House of Glory, you can do
Yeah.
GCW, you can do, Defy, Limitless, the whole suite of major independents in the country, and even go to New Japan and go elsewhere. So, it's nice that that opportunity is at least afforded
Yeah.
to the AEW roster should they want to. All they have to do is just get Tony Khan's approval, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, um, hopefully, maybe WWE will get to that level. It feels like with the global brand really that they've become, I don't know if it's going to make sense for a guy like Finn Balor to just show up on a GCW show.
Well, I
Uh,
could see a scenario, and I'm just saying Arn Anderson, for argument's sake, Arn Anderson or William Regal being like, hey, if you're an outside promoter, reach out to William Regal, ask what talent you're looking for, send him videos of, the talent that said talent would work with to get approval. Because there's no way that WWE would ever sign off like Cody Rhodes wrestling Nick Gage. Just absolutely
yeah.
none whatsoever. But I could see a scenario where it's like, hey, we're going to send Dom Mysterio to go wrestle Effie with
Mm.
proper approval. You know what I mean? And I'm just picking random names. So again, hey, send us, ask who you want. Ask, send us who they would wrestle with, and everything has to get approved by us because we have the most money built, like staked into this person right now.
Mhm.
So we need that approval, or you need that approval from us before we get that going. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah. And it's the right thing to do, and maybe we'll see that one day with WWE. So Dynamite last night, let's get into that.
Yes.
Um, the show started with Will Ospreay and Brian Cage, and it started with Will Ospreay's music. And I feel
Yeah.
like starting off Dynamite with Will Ospreay's music way better than the Pointer Sisters, I would say.
So they didn't
That's
start,
just a
okay, because I watched it on Max, and it was my first time watching it on Max. So I didn't know if Max didn't show the opening because of the Pointer Sisters, or it literally just started with
nope,
Osprey.
just
So
started with Will Ospreay's
okay,
music.
okay,
Let's
cool,
do
cool,
that
cool, cool.
more. That's much better. Thank you.
I liked it.
Yeah. And the match, Brian Cage has proven to be a very, very great hand in wrestling as a wrestler who you're not thinking can do the moves that he can do. It's very,
Hmm.
it's really it's that bigger guy doing more of a almost lucha-esque style, and that is pleasant to see. Unfortunately, he loses all of his matches, but so he's not gonna win 9 out of I'm gonna say 9.5 out of 10 times. Um, but this was a fun match to start the show, but obviously it was the post match that mattered more because right before the bell rang, or was just as the bell rang.
Okay, so this is my biggest issue, and we'll go into my issue there too.
Okay, go ahead.
The bell rings. Don Callis gets on the microphone and says, "Look up at the screen! Look up at the screen! Look up at the screen!" And there's Omega getting beaten up by Takeshita and God, who was the other one? I'm
Kyle
already
Fletcher.
blanking on the name. Thank you, Fletcher. And then the match just starts. Like he's looking at his partner getting beaten up, and then the match starts. And then I'm just going to say this: at 8:13, I looked at my phone and went, Ospreay is showing no urgency to try to end this match to go help out his teammate that just got assaulted in the back. And then this is always my issue. people on the outside, wrestling on the outside. The match started. They spent most of that time on the outside. Rick Knox just let the whole thing go. And my comparison is if you're watching an NBA game, if we're watching, are you a basketball fan?
No.
Okay. So it doesn't
No,
matter.
I'm really kind of baseball
Okay.
somewhat and wrestling. That's really my
Okay.
only two things.
So let's say it's the Knicks versus the Cavs. If the entire game is happening in the out of bounds area, everyone is going to be like, this is bullshit. Why aren't the referees doing anything? And I know what some of you are thinking. This is pro wrestling. It's not real sport. Okay. If you're watching Air Bud and Air Bud is,
what a good movie.
and everyone is just doing all the stuff like out of bounds, you're going to be like, this is the most unrealistic basketball movie ever, because they're all playing the game out of bounds. You're not even focusing on the fact that a golden retriever is just dunking on a bunch of kids. Like you're going to focus on the fact that all these other rules are getting broken the entire time, because at least Air Bud followed the rules. I'll give him that.
Yeah. He was a dog, but he knew exactly how to play basketball.
Yeah, he couldn't do many assists, but man, that dog had a great shot. Anyway, so that was my big issue. I thought, Styles Clash for the win, that was cool. But then you mentioned what happened after the match. And I'm going to use a corny saying here. And I know I'm somebody who said I'm not going to cornet on all you guys, and I'm already referencing him like for the third time. Cornette calls these things an afterbirth. This afterbirth had an afterbirth that had an afterbirth. It went on for a long time. Would you like to go into the events that happened?
So it's funny that I didn't call it an afterbirth, nor did I know that he calls things afterbirth. But I do have in my notes, the match was fun, but it was the post match that mattered more here, as Kenny was shown backstage beaten down. But then he was able to come out
without a scratch. Without a scratch.
A scratch, running full-fledged with his music, and then, quote, a very long beatdown ensued with Don Callis' family's music starting and stopping multiple times.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they've done the beatdown. Music starts playing. Kenny or Will sort of like get a little bit of life back in them. Music stops, beat down. Music starts playing again.
And
now other person sort of gets life in them. Music stops, beat down, music plays. It's like, what? How many times are we going to do this? Is this going to be the whole show?
So this was my issue. The match didn't matter at all.
Right, which it should, and it didn't. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Because at the point when you're showing Omega getting beaten up in the back, how come Cage and Lance Archer just didn't start beating up Will Ospreay right then and there? You lost the match anyway. What's the difference between losing by pin and losing by disqualification? At least people don't see you get pinned.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally the same outcome would have happened if this match just never took place. And after the match,
it could have been a promo segment, and it would have had the same result. After
the match, Archer attacks Will Ospreay. Then Omega comes out for the save, so that's the afterbirth, the other afterbirth, and then of course the 4-on-2 beatdown that lasted a long time, which no one came out to help these guys.
Yeah, what? There's nobody apparently likes Kenny and Will. They're just
and this has been my other thing. And do you remember in 2020 when Edge returned from the Rumble and then Randy Orton beat the shit out of him for like 15 minutes on Raw the next night, and like made it look like he tried to. I'm watching this going, where's Zack Ryder? the whole time. Like anybody, Kurt Hawkins, you're going to tell me that Edge is going to be doing his first promo after an 11-year return, and like first legitimate promo. I mean, I don't mean like, we got special guest Edge. He's doing his first legitimate promo, and there's not going to be a sellout at the monitor, as they call it. Like there's not going to be people like hanging back. Are you telling me that literally everyone went back to their hotel after their match and Edge is just in the ring with Randy
And
Orton.
you can't, and for this
knocked.
specific instance, you can't use that excuse because it was the start of the show.
Yeah,
Everyone
I mean,
is still
granted,
dead.
how many times have we seen people on this show and in Raw too? I'm hold accountability where accountability is. How many times have you seen it where people are either showing up late or leaving like as soon as the show starts? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
we got a plane to catch. Well, why even show up at the building? You know, so I don't know. What's up, Tom?
It's one of those little
Excited
nitpicky
for see our
things,
interview.
but because it's pro wrestling, we all just go, all right.
I
Yeah.
guess,
So,
man. I guess. I don't know. That's always bothered me.
yeah, I mean, it's a totally understandable critique because sometimes it's like,
Thank you.
okay, it's like, oh yeah, so Kenny is coming out, his music plays when he comes out, but the music didn't have to play because now the music playing signifies
Yeah.
that this was in the script, so to speak, of Kenny coming out to save Will in this exact moment, and the music is to get the crowd to, So, because in real life, if you're sitting at a table right by an entrance to the ramp, go down to the ring, and then all of a sudden Kenny Omega is just running down and getting up the stairs, going up to the ramp, you don't have time to play Kenny Omega's music. Or if you're gonna play Kenny Omega's music, by the time
He
he
should be
hits
in the ring already. Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's it's little nitpicky things like that that I totally get that are like it kind of like takes you out of it a little bit. But it's because it's been so ingrained into professional wrestling, it's just like, okay, you just move on. Like, all right, music played.
As fans, we move on. As an industry that needs to gain more fans, it makes no sense and immediately makes people question, okay, well, why am I watching this? We all knew The Office was not an actual documentary, but everything that happened on The Office somewhat made sense and could realistically happen in real life. And then when something outrageous happened, it was at least tied into enough reality to where we went, okay, yeah, I buy it. I dig it. But anyway.
Yeah. And hello, Tom. Tom Talks Rubbish is in the chat right now, and he said that your interview with him drops next Friday. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. I'm excited to go watch it again. I remember we talked about some stuff, and well, if we didn't talk about stuff, that'd be a boring hour-long podcast, just us staring at each other. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. And Tom, I'm loving your Twitter, man. Keep fighting, dude. Keep boxing. I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, so Tom, I did not forget about you, I promise. We will talk about us getting together again and doing an interview. So after this very long beatdown, Renee is backstage and she's in front of Swerve door. It's like she's gonna go and interview Swerve Strickland. And all of a sudden Hangman just shows up and opens Swerve's door and looks in. She's like, oh, nope, not in there. And it's just like blowing off Renee, like, hey, what are you doing here? What's going on? And he's just like, whatever. Starts walking by and then bumps into MJF. And I really like this small little moment between the two of them because what I feel like is happening ever since the little feud, I guess, a mini feud with Christopher Daniels, I'm starting to kind of see slowly, very slowly, the babyface side of Hangman is like seeping out very slowly. Last week it was when Christopher Daniels announced he was retiring. He kind of had this like look on his face. It's like, what? Like it wasn't registering with him. It's like, uh-oh, something that I did directly resulted in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it started looking like he was a little bit remorseful.
Talk about Hangman.
Then this week,
yeah,
like, why is he looking for Swerve all of a sudden? Like, is he looking for Swerve to bury the hatchet? Is he looking for Swerve to beat him up more? We
How
don't
great
know
would it
yet.
be if he
He didn't
showed up
want to
on
tell
Monday
us
Night
anything.
Raw and knocked on CM Punk's locker room door? Like, I've said
That
this
would be funny.
before. WWE and AEW have become the afterlife for each other. So when one wrestler theoretically dies on one show, when they come to the other not saying it's heaven or hell, I'm just saying it's their afterlife. Like that other stuff didn't exist. And TNA is kind of like the purgatory in between them. Uh, that's where I'm at there. But I loved MJF. He said no one will ruin my mood tonight, and I wrote in my notes, and that's because Britt Baker is not there. So
Yes, no one
did
will
a little
ruin his
promo.
mood, but he will ruin ours.
Yeah.
That's the key. He didn't say that, but lately, I don't know, Botchamania, right?
Of course. Love
Of course.
Botchamania.
One of the best things. It's getting to you talk too much territory.
Mm-hmm.
Homeboy, you never shut up. Like seriously, it's getting to that point, especially in this feud, because all they've really done is talk. And it's like, holy shit, man. let's I'm glad you're not with Adam Cole anymore. But we don't have to immediately then go, okay, well, let's make this feud incredibly annoying by you just constantly talking and talking and talking in like 15-minute segments every week. Thankfully, we didn't really get that this week. But
talking feuds only work if both people are great talkers and both people are megastars. Because at that point, you're building up to when they do actually touch. Like,
right.
Go back to The Rock and John Cena. That build up to their first match at WrestleMania 28, which I was at, by the way. That first build up from the time The Rock hit Cena with rock bottom at Survivor Series in 2011, they didn't touch until they got to Mania. So they did all those promos and they got pretty close, but you didn't see anything. And that was designed by purpose. And because you were building up that suspense for the match, but that only worked with The Rock and John Cena. Like that wouldn't work with, I'm going to be burying somebody here, Matt Hardy and Evan Bourne, or Matt Sydal, or whatever you want to talk. Because at a certain point, you're just going to be like, listen, one of you two needs to punch the other one in the face. Like you can't just, you just can't keep talking smack like this to each other. And that was one of my issues with WWE, was how long the promos would be and how like personal they would get, and of course the childish remarks. It was like, at some point somebody just punch him in the mouth. Like, be a man, do something.
Right. Thankfully that's what we get finally in this new feud of Jeff Jarrett versus MJF. But that comes, of course, after the Claudio Castagnoli match, which is right after this. Now, I have no issues with Claudio, and I have no issues with Jeff Jarrett. Some people do have issues with Jeff Jarrett and the position
Not
that
me.
he's in.
The greatest wrestler of all time. I will die on that hill.
Oh, I'm listen. I'm not like an old head wrestling fan. That's not, I wasn't like NWA and even early TNA and all that stuff. I really just came back to wrestling in 2012, and I've really only seen from then on. It was sprinkled, I've gone back and watched matches from like, I might watch a match from the 80s, and I was a little bit of a fan in the 90s, but it wasn't because I was a fan, it was because my best friend's brother was a fan. So it was on when I went to the house, and I was watching it because it was on TV, and I was watching TV. That was pretty much it. I took many a stunner in my days.
Well, allow me to make my case here. Double J, Jeff Jarrett, is without a doubt the greatest wrestler in the history of professional wrestling. He's got the longevity and the adaptability. He's been doing this for 35 years, constantly reinventing himself, thriving in the WWF, the WCW, TNA, AEW, and AAA. We're talking about, if you want to talk about his in-ring ability and his storytelling, he's fundamentally sound, and he works as a heel and a babyface. Championship, you say? 6-time NWA champion, 4-time WCW champion, 6-time IC champion, 3-time US champion. And by the way, he's held the tag title in WWE, WCW, and TNA. He created TNA, which not only gave the first alternative to WWF after WCW went down, it was a breeding ground for people like AJ Styles. It was a breeding ground for Samoa Joe and for Bobby Roode. Do those names sound familiar to you? I think they sound familiar to me. You want to talk about charismatic ability and mic skills? He works especially as a heel, the whole ain't I great thing. When wrestling fans see a guitar, do they think of Elvis? Do they think of any current rock star? Or no, you don't even think of Elias. You think about Jeff Jarrett. Whether he was the country singer in WWF, he was Slapnuts in WCW, or he was the authoritarian guy in TNA, it worked. Feuds, this guy feuded with people like Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin. And who did the great Ric Flair have his last match with?
Not Shawn Michaels, like WWE would have you believe.
No, he did not. You know, he's got influence, he's got legacy, all of that stuff. He's been in the Hall of Fame in both TNA and in WWE. He may not be as mainstream as Hogan or as worldwide known as somebody like The Rock, but he's got the longevity. He's got the versatility. He's got the championship success, the contributions to the wrestling business. He is one of the most important figures in the history of professional wrestling. He's been relevant for decades. He adapts to any era, and he helps build stars. Jeff Jarrett, the greatest wrestler of all time. Ain't he great? I rest my case.
Wow. All right, everybody. Well, that was the show.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I don't know how to go on after that. That was incredible, Dan.
I used 6 note cards for that.
So Sunday Sinner, who I mentioned before we went on stream, he's not here in the chat yet. I don't know if he may have had to go to work. He's in love with Jeff Jarrett. He actually knows Jeff Jarrett.
Wow.
And you are his new best friend. I'm just telling you that right now.
Love you, Sunday Sinner.
Wow, that was honestly that was impressive.
Thank you.
That was really impressive.
Thank you. When I make a point,
you may have to take over for me now.
Yeah. I could see me and JPJ having a debate show about Jeff Jarrett.
Pulled out the note cards, even.
I know. I'm ready, man.
Incredible. More prepared than me. Hello, New Music Inferno. It says hello, Drew, and
what's going on, New Music? Mr. New, first name New, last name Music Inferno. Ooh yeah.
So yeah, so like I would, again, I really don't know how to follow that, but
let's talk about the match.
Yes, they had a match. Claudio and Jeff Jarrett had a match. The part that bothered me, if there was something that bothered me about this, because I did not have an issue with the match. I actually thought it was a pretty good match. I don't mind the story here, and I know I am not of the ilk of, they're going to put the world title on Jeff Jarrett in 2025. As great as as everything that you so eloquently put out about Jeff Jarrett, that's not happening. It's just not happening, everybody. And so I don't have a problem with Jeff Jarrett's.
I love comic books, and I love like the Old Man Rides Again story. Like The Dark Knight Returns is the greatest graphic novel of all time. I love Logan. Have you seen Logan, about Wolverine being the old man with the one last fight?
I have not seen that one. No.
Okay, excellent. So I love the story about the old man getting, I got one left in me kind of thing. As much as I admire Jeff Jarrett, I just feel like if you're going to do this story in AEW, it's got to be Dustin Runnels instead. Whenever Dustin's ready to hang it up, this is the story that he needs to go out on.
I feel like he's kind of having that storyline, but Ring of Honor right now. Because
Ring of
Honor.
Ring of
tag
Honor, and going back
champion
to
and trios
bashing Tony
champion.
Khan, just Ring of Honor's never meant less than it has right now. And we're talking about the time when
I'm
Ring
not
of
going to
Honor
disagree with you there.
literally almost went out of business. Literally did go out of business. He bought it. He bought it to keep it in business, to put Athena on a show watched by 14 people, on a show that maybe gets OVW numbers. And that's a positive remark for OVW. Not so much for Tony Khan. I mean, I thought it took Claudio way too long to be a 114-year-old man.
So my issue,
as great.
my issue with this,
Yeah.
my one issue was why do the Death Riders need to interfere in everything, and how does that make Claudio look that he needed the Death Riders to help defeat Jeff Jarrett?
And this isn't where I'm going to make a mistake. I'm just going to bring in something for reference here. 1 second.
Okay.
So this is for my little beagle here. I got 2 of them.
You have 2
I got
dogs.
3.
You have 3
I do.
dogs.
I got a little beagle named Ember Moon. This is my dog Dusty, and unfortunately, back in June we had to put down my dog Heyman. He was the best.
Oh,
but
sorry.
so this is my. Come here. Thank you, man. Come here. Okay, you can't see him right now, but look at this head. This is a Great Dane. Okay, he was all cuddled up next to me last night as I was watching AEW, and Wheeler Yuta came out, and I looked at Wheeler, and I looked at my dog, and I went, my dog is bigger than Wheeler Yuta. I understand.
Better groomed
we all
as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's the I'm going to wait for Yuta's match to actually bring up his other appearance. But that was the first thing I just went, one of these things is not like the other, because at least Jarrett looks like he's in good shape, and he also looks like old man strong too. You know what I mean? Like he had that
I know
little
exactly
bit of
what you mean.
So anyway, that was the whole big thing, was that the finish, I just felt like it went a little bit flat, because again, like, why they did a lot of things just for Moxley to come in while Yuta was distracting him. Why even bring the chair into play when you could have just had Yuta go up on the ring and then Moxley run in and whatever he's calling his move in AEW. I call it a DDT. It's
I
a,
think the paradigm shift.
Yeah, it's whatever you want to call it. I call it the DDT. It's that whole I forgot what movie it's from. His mama named him DDT. I'm calling him DDT. That's DDT for me. I do the same thing with Edge. His mama named him Edge. I'm gonna keep calling him Edge.
Cope. I do not call him Cope. So
There's no way. Absolutely not. But yeah, I just thought, at first I thought the suitcase, again, suitcase handcuffed to Marina looked dumb. But as we go on to Moxley a little bit later, I'm giving it a pass. I'm going to give that a little bit of a pass.
I've never actually had an issue with Marina Shafir's role in the Death Riders. I actually like it. I like that she is seen as like the bodyguard for not just the title, but for the group. And I like that, because we don't see that very often. Firstly, it's rare that you see a woman in a man's group. Like the Death Riders feels like this, gnarly, grungy man group, and it's nice to see a woman in it. I genuinely like that, and for her to be positioned as kind of like the heavy in the group as well, I think is it makes Marina look phenomenal.
Yeah,
and I want to see this more in wrestling. I want to see more, intergender style groups, where the female is actually seen as like not if not 1A, 1B.
So I will agree and disagree to a point. I'm going to go over the disagree part first. Is that, and I don't want anyone to look more into what I'm saying than what I'm saying. It's a 240-pound man next to a 110-pound woman is going to be a very drastic difference in physical body type.
Those are the main critiques of intergender wrestling. So yeah.
So that's my only thing I'm going to say. Other than that, hey, I'm not that the world's so sensitive right now, but there's certain people out there who don't need me to make their life any more difficult, who are just trying to exist, and they deserve all the safety, respect that anyone else deserves. I'm talking about transgender stuff there, if you're not picking up. I figure most of you are, but just putting that there. So I'm not going to talk about, this whole, there's men and women sports or anything like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, when you look at, a 240-pound man next to a 110-pound woman, you're going to see the difference. I will say, though, if you have somebody like Camille in that role, who is 6 foot tall, who is a lean 160, 165, because she is jacked and a beautiful woman, but you look at her like that and you can go, hey, if she sneaks up on somebody, puts them in a sleeper hold or a chokehold, I can see that knocking a man out. You know what I mean? Because it's like she would have enough of that, at least power and base to herself, to where you can get by in that. That's just what I'm saying. So I think Marina gives it, with her MMA background, I understand why she was picked for it. When I watch TV and I see, these alleged killers as what pro wrestlers are supposed to be, getting choked out by a 110-pound woman, I'm just like, come on, man. But again, I think Marina,
I understand. Yeah.
For the job that she's done and for the job that she's been given, I thought she's been doing as good of a job as what she could be doing.
Yeah, I definitely get it, because there are people who think of that way of intergender wrestling, and it's difficult for them to, not in a sexist, misogynistic way, but in just watching it visually, just seeing, like you said, a 240-pound man versus a 110-pound woman, and it just doesn't compute. Because
I mean, I have issues with that just watching wrestling as it is. I mean, it's Brian Danielson. I'm referencing him as Daniel Bryan here because I'm talking about WWE related. When he wrestled Lesnar, I mean, he's always wrestled like a giant. And if you've ever seen him live, there's times that you're watching him where you're like, man, I forgot this guy's like 5'7". I forgot that this guy's maybe 200 pounds, because of how he puts himself. But when he's in there with somebody who's noticeably bigger than him, you believe it because of how that style kind of changes. And Sami Zayn kind of does that too, where he's got that kind of scrappy look to him. But like, let's say, I mean, I'm throwing people under the bus here. Dragon Lee steps in the ring with Braun Strowman. Just Braun Strowman takes a clothesline. You're going to be like, what the shit is this? You know what I mean? It doesn't work. So I think size obviously matters, but I don't know. If it works, it works. Kind of went a little farther. Anyway.
No, it's like you
Jeff
said.
Jarrett got punched in the mouth.
Like you said, just to put to close the book on that one, the visual of it sometimes doesn't work for people, and I totally get it. It's not for everybody. So match is over, and then MJF comes out.
Another post-match thing in the ring.
Yeah, another post-match.
2 matches in a row.
This wasn't a beatdown, at least. It was just one really stiff punch that led to Jeff Jarrett laying on the ground for 5 straight minutes. Or not even, well, it was a little shorter than that. But, wrestling. That's what happened.
MJF only said like 3 words before he punched him, I wrote this down. I really want a Conrad Thompson podcast where MJF is in character the whole time
Oh, that would be incredible.
and just talk
That would be
about
incredible.
his career. Exactly. Just, it's fun listening to Bruce Pritchard and Eric Bischoff tell stories, even though, both of them are full of shit at a certain point, so you don't know exactly where the truth comes in and where it goes. But I think an MJF in character podcast with Conrad, of all people, would be great.
Yes, I would actually genuinely, if that whoever did that podcast, even if it was Jim Cornette, I would probably listen to that because that would be
That-
fun.
Even Jim Cornette, how could you say that about my cult leader? I am outraged right now.
So after this was, I think, this was not when was this when the Jon Moxley?
No, this is when Renee was with Ricochet,
Ricochet,
and then
right.
immediately into Ricochet and AR Fox.
Yes. So backstage, we see Renee interviewing Ricochet, and Ricochet is prohibited from we find out Ricochet is prohibited from interfering in his match tonight. He cannot touch him, and then if he does, they will lose.
Swerve. You said Ricochet.
Yeah, Ricochet. He's prohibited. Swerve is prohibited from interfering in Ricochet's match. He will lose the match next week if he does so. There's this little thing, and off to the ring he goes, wearing trunks again. Thank you very much. I needed that in my life. And that's all I'm gonna say. Gonna keep it PG. And AR Fox comes out, and they have a pretty damn good match. So one of the better matches of the night. I like they're similar in style, but this is my favorite style, which is why
Okay.
I kind of gravitated towards AEW, especially when AEW started, because Will Ospreay and Ricochet's Battle of Super Juniors match in 2016 was really like what got me into this style of wrestling.
Mhm.
And Ricochet as a heel, this is really like the first time we're seeing this. I don't know if he's ever been a heel before WWE. Prince Puma, I believe, is a babyface in
Lucha Underground.
Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
I
believe
maybe
you're right.
he did some heel work in New Japan before then, or I don't know. But I have been personally a fan of this, and what I particularly liked, after the match, of course, then Swerve is like, "Oh, well, match is over." So Swerve's gonna come out immediately because now he can interfere, so to speak. And something that you don't see very often when it comes to wrestling, at least, he grabs the golden scissor and is like holding AR Fox hostage. It's like, "I'm gonna stab him. You better get away from me." Okay, it's campy and cheesy, and obviously, you know, but like the kind of the theme of the day has been wrestling. That's it's wrestling. So when people get run over, when people's houses get broken into, when people get attacked out of nowhere, anywhere besides the ring, nobody calls the cops. They don't get arrested. They don't get thrown in jail. So Ricochet holding AR Fox hostage with a scissor to his throat, he went home and to his own bed and never saw prison time for it because that's what wrestling is.
So I'm not the biggest Ricochet fan. Okay.
Okay,
And I
that's
wouldn't,
fine.
and I'm not AR Fox either. Nothing against him. Just, hey, not my thing. I thought this match was a lot of pretty moves. And for the people who like matches with a lot of pretty moves, they love this match. I'll not say anything bad against it. Two good athletes. I had the stupid scissors. And then at the end, after he dumps AR Fox and he's holding the scissors like this, there was a comedian in Cleveland, and I can't think of his name right now, and it's bugging me. He had this joke about a guy who went on a stabbing spree at a mall in California, where he's like, okay, I can understand one or two people, but like anybody after that third person, how do you get stabbed? Because all you got to do is like, and he gets behind a chair. He's like, hey man, quit playing, kind of like stay back. A shoe, a shoe. All you do, Nana, give me your shoe and hold it up, and your shoe's bigger than the scissors. And at that point, a bigger threat when Ricochet's like, don't come anywhere near me right now. And then, as you said, you're literally holding a man hostage and putting him right there. Sorry, I saw David's thing had a bad scissor incident. God damn it. I wish I would have thought of that. Oh, God damn it. What a great reference. I can't believe that one slipped past me. I don't know. That was didn't do it for me, dog.
All right. Listen, like I said, even though this platform is Love Wrestling, you don't have to love everything, because
Right.
it's the beauty of this sport is that it is subjective.
Sure.
I rail all the time on social media. Not really that much anymore because social media sucks. But life would be so much easier if everyone just allowed people who enjoyed something that they didn't enjoy
Yeah.
to just go about enjoying their lives and enjoying things that they like. It's just as simple as that. You can enjoy something that I enjoyed. You can enjoy something I didn't enjoy. But
Mhm.
I'm not gonna tell Dan, "How dare you besmirch the name of Ricochet, you piece of shit," because that's stupid.
Felt like that was a little
If
bit of a
you don't
shoot
like
there.
Ricochet and his character, how dare you not like that he wears trunks and gets to show off? How dare you? How dare you, Dan? God! But you see, that's the life on social media. You say you don't like pancakes, that immediately means that you also don't like waffles, because breakfast food, you hate eggs. You must hate eggs. You must hate bacon because you hated pancakes. No, I just don't like pancakes. Doesn't mean I don't like waffles. Doesn't mean I don't like bacon. But you can like pancakes if I don't like pancakes. You can dislike Ricochet if I like Ricochet. You can dislike anything.
Mhm.
That's your prerogative. Wrestling, just like food, subjective. The taste
It is.
has to be specific, and it's gotta be to your liking, and if it's not, it's okay.
It is. And I agree, but where I will disagree is one thing. And I remember a couple weeks ago, you and JPJ were talking about television ratings and how don't pay attention to that. It's not the same thing. And I agree, people are not watching TV the way that they used to. When ratings during the show will plummet, and I don't know what the ratings for the show are. Don't know, whatever. When certain people come on their screen, which we're going to talk about here in a moment, and people tune the channel or turn the channel, and when certain things happen, and it's not just that people are turning the channel off, it's that this brand that was getting 10,000 people in the door, when they first started, are having a hard time getting 2,500 people in the door. That's when I think sometimes you need to reevaluate. Hey, we might like, the people who bought the tickets might like what we're putting on in the ring, might like the story going on, but all these empty seats that used to have people don't like this anymore. And I think that's where, I think, again, it's there's people that like baseball. There's people that like football. There's people that like basketball. There's people that don't like any of that stuff. You're not right or wrong for liking those things. In wrestling, I do believe that there's a place for just about everything. There's a place for comedy. There's a place for serious wrestling, drama, whatever. Um, Something like this just kind of made me remember why I normally watch AEW the next day on fast forward. And so after I'll say this, after the Moxley thing, there was another segment, and I'll explain my fast forward tendencies with this person.
Oh, yeah, we're in the same boat on that one, pal.
Okay, good.
So yeah, so that was the whole Jeff Jarrett, Claudio deal and all that stuff. And Ricochet and everything. So back to
third match in a row where something happened after the match.
Yeah. 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 So Jon Moxley, and there's a whole, so this is just a small clip of this. There's a whole bigger part with Renee on YouTube, which I've not seen yet. So I definitely do want to check this out. For the first time, really, Jon and Renee, they are married, are on screen together, and I don't have the whole promo of what he said here, but there were bits that I found intriguing. And for me to have ranted about this guy 2 weeks ago, and then now I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting." So Jon pretty much explains why we haven't seen the AEW World Title, which I have had a problem with. I don't like that we haven't seen the title since Full Gear. Yeah, actually, even since Wrestle Dream. That's when he won the title. So that was like 4 months ago now. And we've not seen the top of prize of this company since then. And it's really the whole story with the Death Riders has been just bland at most. You know, for a large portion of this, it feels like nothing's progressing. We're not getting any explanations of what's going on here. It's just, hey, we're the Death Riders. We don't like AEW's current vision. We are remaking AEW in our own image. Rinse, repeat with the next guy. That's pretty much how it's been for the whole thing. Right, like JPJ just says, you know, the group is there to interfere for not 60-year-old Jeff Jarrett, but maybe 54 or 55-year-old Jeff Jarrett needs Claudio, who's like physically in one of the best shapes of anybody on the AEW roster, needs help beating that guy. So the Death Riders are there to do that. They're there to interfere in matches and whatever. However, I will say, this explanation from Jon Moxley, I actually liked. He goes to say, and I'm paraphrasing. What he says is that the title. So what made me chuckle actually was he's like, "Oh, what? Oh, you want to see the title? You need to see the title? You want to take a picture of it? You want to hold it? You want to look at it? Is this a petting zoo?" When he said, "Is this a petting zoo?" That actually made me laugh.
Yeah, that was a good line.
He goes on to say, "It's like the title isn't what makes you a champion. It's in here is what makes you a champion." So basically, what he's saying is the title is just the visual of you being the top dog of the company. But being the top dog of the company is not represented by holding that belt. It's what's within you. And, you know, and now he is, because it is within Jon Moxley, he has now decided that a new path needs to be forged in AEW where he wants to build more people who have the championship within them instead of it just being a prop belt that somebody holds up and is like, "Hey, I'm the champion." It's not about that. It's about your soul. It's about what's inside that makes you a champion. He's trying to just basically say that everyone should be a champion, and it shouldn't be defined by who wins the title. And I didn't hate this explanation because first, he did allude to something like this in a previous promo, maybe a couple weeks ago or last month, where he said, like, "Oh, the title doesn't mean anything, really, because everyone knows that you're the world champion.
Mhm.
Why do I need to carry a belt around to signify that?"
So I thought a couple things here. One, Jon Moxley, who I don't particularly care for his matches, um, can talk anybody into the building.
Yeah, that is true.
Fantastic, great talker. I will never take that away from Jon Moxley. I saw Moxley wrestle live in 2008 in a small theater outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. Um, for HWA. He had a Falls Count Anywhere match. So
Hmm.
it's wild to be like one of these guys that you saw in the Indies is literally top of the food chain in one of the companies. As he's explaining this, though, I'm thinking, let's go back to 1997 in WCW and explain to Hulk Hogan, hey, you're the champion, but you're not going to bring the belt out to the ring. Imagine going back to Shawn Michaels and telling him in 97 as well, like, okay, you can be the champion, but we're going to do this thing where the champion doesn't have the belt with him. Like, how long before somebody spits in your face? You know what I mean? It's, I don't know, maybe just work Moxley's, the way how he explained it. Okay. I could see somebody more like an MJF or even like a, see, I take that back. I can't even see MJF doing it. Maybe Bryan Danielson doing this a little bit better, where remember when he was the heel, environmental friendly Bryan Danielson?
Oh, yeah, and he changed the title to the
He
yeah,
changed
yeah.
the title where I could see him doing a heel thing like this, being like, "You people don't deserve the championship. I am the championship. I am the biggest." Great. I agree with David. I could see Christian Cage doing this as well. I
Mm,
don't know. I just
okay.
think slight typecasting. Slight typecasting.
Okay. I can see I see your point there. Um, I felt like this was I would like to it be like an in-ring promo and not just like some backstage Renee Paquette interview
Hmm.
thing that you also go and look on YouTube and it's not on television. Um,
I would have
but I
preferred this to be in the ring and Mariah May's thing to have been backstage that
don't
they did
disagree there.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I get what your points are. I get what David is saying in the chat as well of like, the belts matter. It's not that so I'm not saying that the belt does the AEW title is gorgeous. It's one
Yeah.
of the nicest looking championships in wrestling today. Um, I don't uh, I'm like 50-50 on it really. Like I do get the belts matter. They're not displayed at the moment, but I do have a TNT championship,
Hmm.
Universal Championship, and the NXT World Championship. I have those belts. I used to have them displayed when I had a display case behind me, but I don't right now. Um, but I understand wanting and sometimes for a fan needing to see a championship. Like I have felt the same way. It's like, we haven't seen their AEW championship in a while. You could bring it out once in a while, Just the only way for me to see the top prize of this company shouldn't just be what the fans buying the replicas and holding them.
Hmm.
Like the champion, it would be nice for the champion to have the physical title on him, at least for like the pay-per-view matches.
Sure.
Like when he didn't come out with them at the pay-per-views, I was like, oh, okay, we're really like doing it like this. Um, but for at least this explanation, I didn't hate this explanation because it does fit in with the current Jon Moxley character of, you know, forging a path of monster, who have a championship quality to them. And the championship represented by not a title, but by the person. So I didn't hate that explanation, but I
Yeah.
do also understand what people say about wanting to see the title.
And I will say this, I do think eventually, especially for the AEW audience, the AEW faithful, as I'll call them, when Moxley gets beat and you see that belt again for the first time, that's going to be a whole big other pop too,
Yeah,
because
I agree.
he's
Yeah.
kept it from you for so long. And the only way I can think it could be better is he he loses the belt at a pay-per-view on a Saturday night and then wins it back that Wednesday and hides it again from the fans. You give it to him, you take it right back. That's that's the best way I can think of to do that.
That
But
would be
yeah,
evil,
I mean,
and I
like
would also love it.
Mox is a man. The guy can talk. Guy can talk. If he in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whenever he decides to hang up the boots as a full time pro wrestler, if he wants to be a manager like Heenan, I think we got more money there.
Yeah. So then something called a New York minute happens, but it was really a New York 3 minutes. And if we want to just hit fast forward on that, I'm totally cool with moving on.
I've always said this, that there's always going to be a spot in professional wrestling for Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. And if anything's taught me these last couple of years, it's that Hulk Hogan is ruining literally all of his goodwill with the majority of wrestling fans, and so is Ric Flair, to the point where they show up on TV and you're just like, why don't you go away? And this is coming from somebody who is debating whether or not to go meet Hulk Hogan tomorrow as he comes to Cleveland. I know that I know he's a terrible human being. I get that, but damn it, I'm a Hulkamaniac. I can't help it. And I'm also headed to do a club in Tampa at the end of February. And I went to Hogan's restaurant last time I was there, and it was the most okay cheeseburger I've ever had in my life. And I might go back and get another okay cheeseburger again. Because God, I just something about that red and yellow just takes me away. But I will say this: I make that reference because if Chris Jericho is not in that category with you, I feel like Chris Jericho is going to get in that category with other people where just go, we don't want you on our screen anymore. We don't want it's you're
The
done.
only thing, so I'll say positively, the only thing that this did for me is that it's starting to show the dissension between Big Bill and Jericho. Like that was pretty much it.
And you know what? Big Bill has had he was his own worst enemy in WWE, and he'll admit that. He had attitude
He
problems.
has. He had interviews.
I think he had drinking problems at the time too. Or he was experiencing during that. I don't fully know. The timeline gets kind of messy, but per his own admission, he's had drinking problems. He had attitude problems. He admits that if he was in charge, he would have fired himself too. He deserved it. So Big Bill being where he's at right now is kind of a feel good story. It's like, hey, this guy is taking opportunity. He's got himself in great shape. His in-ring work has improved. Not to say that he was ever, the worst wrestler in the world, but hey, this guy realized what he screwed up, and he's taking these opportunities. He's building them back. So, way to go! I wish he wasn't with Jericho, because I just feel like Jericho is uh I don't want to boo him. I don't want to see him. I just, if I wasn't doing this would have been the point. Absolutely, I would have turned off the TV and just went, okay, going to bed for the night. So anyway,
Totally get it, because it's been I'm in the same boat as you. Jericho has overstayed his welcome for me. I really enjoyed him the first 3 years. But ever since the like when the Jericho Appreciation Society started, that was kind of when it started going downhill, I think, for a lot of people.
yeah,
Because you're really seeing that anybody that was in a position with Jericho were the people that you would rather see instead of Jericho.
yeah.
So now, in order to see those people, you have to see Jericho, because it's, in the end, all about Jericho.
It was his rivalry with MJF that started turning me off, where I was just like,
Oh, that was even earlier than
dude,
that.
I just felt like he was just dragging MJF down. I'm all Jericho'd out. I don't know if you want to move on. I can't
I
talk about the
absolutely do.
guy.
So,
Okay.
Switchblade Jay and Wheeler Yuta was next.
So this is the appearance thing I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
Wheeler Yuta not only looks like a teenager, he looks like literally he looks like every emo's kid I went to high school with. and throughout this entire match, I just kept watching him, thinking like he was an emo kid. And then I just want to butt in really quick here again that the match started, he did a rollout really early, and I'm just going to point out that Hardcore Holly did that exact same thing in a SmackDown house show I went to back in 2007, and I hated it then, and I hate it now. It just,
And unfortunately, that's something that's done a lot in wrestling.
it's done a lot, and whatever. Jay White, good athlete, I like him. He looks like he hit Wheeler Yuta hard, and I just thought, what's going through Wheeler Yuta's mind, and I just wrote down, "You know you do, you kill me well, you like it too, and I can tell." That's the emo. It's. I just kept thinking of emo lyrics during this whole match.
So it's funny because you're mentioning the emo thing, and I mentioned last night on a stream that I was on that it seems like every week the hair gets longer and the beard gets longer, and there's just no. That's why I said when your Great Dane was in the camera before, like, and the Great Dane is better groomed than Wheeler Yuta as well, because he
probably
just
smells
looks
better too.
so homeless, like, just. And I think that's probably selling part of this whole character arc with him ever
Of
since,
just being
like,
miserable.
just being miserable and emo and just not ever since he bought into the new Death Riders thing and turned on his mentor. It seems like he's just a sulky emo teenager.
He is. I can see him in the backstage going, "As for now, I'm gonna hear the saddest song and sit alone and wonder."
He has My Chemical
How
Romance
you're
on
making
repeat.
out.
Probably a big Helena fan, but it's just as, like, or like maybe Screamo or something. But it just, that's the vibe that Wheeler Yuta gives off now, and I don't hate it, but it is like the whole Death Riders thing, as we've been saying. We need some progression in this. Like, it can't just be this same thing every single week. And by the way, that dude, Pac and Claudio, are the trios champions.
Yeah.
And you may forget that. I do sometimes
Yep.
because, like the World Championship, you don't see those belts either, and they don't defend them.
And you know
So
why he's a
it's
trios champion? Because he
why?
can't make it on his own. Because Jon Moxley's from Cincinnati, Ohio. All right, that's the last emo reference. I'm gonna. Thank you. I'll see myself out.
So the match again, fine,
Have you
and
ever had
then
this much singing on Firmly AEW?
no, I did last year. I think mid to early last year. I did a stupid thing where I told JPJ I was going to sing Judas. And I went on between two beards, and I was like, on Firmly AEW, stay tuned because I'm gonna sing Judas. And then I sang
Oof.
Lady Gaga's Judas instead. So everyone thought it was gonna be Jericho's Judas. Like, no, 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 no. I'm not singing that crap.
I don't
That
even
was
want to hear
before
Jericho sing that
then.
crap.
Yeah. So that Judas, so that was the first time anyone sung, and now today is the second time.
Oh, good, good. I'm happy to be one of two. God, can
Um,
you just as bad as Jericho segments are? Can you imagine if he just started singing in all of them? Ugh.
don't give him any ideas.
I think you can't just cancel Dynamite. You literally have to cancel TBS. Like you go to click on TBS and the channel just goes dark.
The
Like
channel's
it
just
just goes.
gone.
It's
Like,
gone.
wait, did YouTube TV drop TB? Nope, TBS just
Yeah,
doesn't exist anymore.
yeah. He buried TBS. He killed TBS. He gave it COVID. That's
So rated FTR come to make the save after Jay White wins.
yeah.
And okay.
Yeah, it lets you know that hey, we can beat a senior citizen to death. And no one's gonna help him out. But man, that Jay White, that poor Jay White, who's in shape, young, has another 20 years. The second you lay a fist on him, you're gonna have FTR coming after you. You're gonna have
Yeah.
FTR in that ring like you just jumped Bret Hart at the Hall of Fame ceremony.
Heaven forbid,
Yeah.
Kenny Omega, who just recovered from
Yeah.
diverticulitis. Who wants to come help him?
Yeah.
We don't need to help him. Or Jeff Jarrett, like you're saying. It's like,
Yeah.
nah, they're fine. We got to go help Jay White instead. Healthy, spry, mid-30s, I think, Jay White.
Is he mid 30s? Let me
I
look that up here.
genuinely have no idea. I would say, if I had to guess, before you tell me, because you're looking it up, if I had to guess, I would say Jay White was 36.
32. Okay, I
Really?
thought he was like 28. Yeah. Having said that, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, yeah, he's been around for not a long time, but he's been around for a while now. So,
I
okay.
did not expect that. Okay.
Yeah, let's see. How old's
Yeah.
Kenny
God,
Omega?
I'm older than him. What the fuck?
41. Whew. So this is the one that kind of threw me off. Let me find him here. I don't know why, but I thought like Nick Aldis was like 45 for like the longest time because he has kind of like Arn
He's got that
Anderson who looks
older
like
gentleman vibe, Tim.
yeah. Nick Aldis is 1 year older than me. One.
Wow.
That's it. I just I don't know. That blew my mind when I found that out. Like I said, when did he win the NWA championship? When did Nick Aldis
David,
win?
the Butcher and the Butcher has been around now and then. I believe the Blade is still injured. He had a really bad injury. I think it was a neck injury. So he's been out for a while. But Butcher wrestled somewhat recently, I think,
Okay.
like 2 months ago. Um, but yeah, Jay White is 32
Wow.
years old. I am 33 years old, almost 34 in a couple months. I did not know I was older than him, and that makes me sad. because I should be in
It
shape.
does get depressing. I said this before. I stopped collecting baseball cards when I was in my later 20s. Completely stopped. Did I lose you? Am I back?
It's there's
Okay.
like moments where you kind of like freeze and then speed
Okay.
up a little bit. Yeah, but you're good
Okay.
now.
Well, I'll restart it. I stopped collecting them because when I was a kid, these people were my heroes. They were my icons, and then I realized in like my mid to late 20s, I'm older than most of these people on the cards now. They're no longer my heroes. Now I'm just collecting pictures of younger men, and that kind of made me feel like a creepo doing that. I just it didn't feel right.
Yeah. When you
It's
put it that way, absolutely. Because I was gonna make a
yeah, you're
comment,
just
but then you said younger men, and I said, never mind." In
yeah,
case you
it's
didn't know, I
hey,
don't know if you got
just not my. I I put two and two together before on previous shows.
I'm sure you
I
figured it out.
kind of I realize that, and I'm I'm not trying to make any kind of gay joke by saying that. I'm just saying I feel weird. Like there's times I watch the show. Like I've had friends say things about like Liv Morgan, and I get that like she's in her 30s, but like to me she still looks like she's 22, and I'm like she is just way too young. And like you guys are just creepy old men. Like that's how I look at it now. Maybe having having two daughters has really affected me in that way. And
Oh,
it's
you have
like
kids?
you don't look at
Oh,
these
that's really
women
cool.
like they're objects. Yeah, I got three. I have a fourth coming in July.
Oh, congrats. Awesome.
Thank you.
Um,
Speaking of
yes,
younger
that's why I
women,
said, like,
who came
when I
next?
was referencing, Ricochet earlier, I said, like, I keep it classy as I can.
Yeah,
Because some people can just go in a whole different direction with it.
Samantha Irvine is a lucky woman. If
Yes,
if
she
you get
is.
what it,
Yes, she
if you like that, she's a good woman. She's a lucky lady.
So after this was Mariah May.
Yeah.
So Mariah May, Renee is out there, Mariah May comes out and says, "Oh, it's great to be in Huntsville, but maybe we should change that H to a C."
Yeah.
It was like, okay, that was silly, but it made me laugh.
I got a kick out
And
of it. Good
yeah,
heel move.
and she's saying how Toni Storm isn't real, and if she wants to play the role of Toni Storm, she should play the Toni who gave her heart to a woman who used her for gold.
Hmm.
Ooh, that was a good line. And the most memorable moment for Toni was her bleeding and crying at Mariah's hands. The Toni who walked out of Wembley Stadium and Japan and Mexico because she couldn't touch her. So play whatever you like. The ending stays the same. She doesn't need to role play because when you're this good, you don't change a thing. So I really like this promo from her.
Yeah.
It didn't, like you were saying earlier, we kind of could have switched it, could have done the Jon Moxley thing in the ring and done the Mariah May thing backstage. But yeah, I thought we now know Timeless Toni Storm is back. She will be facing Mariah May at Grand Slam in 2 weeks, and this is pretty much what the top of the women's division has been waiting for since
Day one.
Tony went away, because I don't know about you, Dan, but not a single person, maybe except for Mina Shirakawa, did I believe could take the title off of Mariah May until Toni Storm was coming back.
So really quick before we go too far, I just want to say the next segment they were showing collision graphics for the matches where you saw Samoa Joe, Hook, Christian, Jericho. They were all in those graphics.
Mhm.
Toni Storm's graphic got the biggest response.
Yes.
From that live audience. Maria May, good talent. The lines that she said were good. This is where I think AEW needs to form some kind of partnership with like an MLW or somebody, to where it's like Maria May didn't say these words as convincing as she probably could have, because these were like great lines. I thought the promo should have just been a little bit more convincing. That's going to come in time with more promo work on a national level. You know, maybe something with like an MLW where you're on a smaller platform, but it's like, hey, we can afford more TV time to her, and because we're graded at a much lower level, you know what I mean? Kind of like their own developmental brand, kind of like their own NXT to work out some of these kinks. Other than that,
Not
I
just
mean,
like their partnership with New Japan, which is another major promotion.
yeah, but I mean, like even I feel like it needs to be more of a American based company though, because
Right.
doing a promo in New Japan is different. It just is. It's different presentation. Just anyway. What was next? Was it the Mercedes Moné?
That was the main event, yes. Before
Okay.
that, there was a small little video package for the returning soon Gun Club,
Oh
which they have
yes.
been off
Yeah.
TV for a while. I think since like I want to say before Full Gear,
Yeah.
maybe even before Wrestle Dream last year. I think it was Colton Gunn that got injured.
Mm-hmm.
So they just like decided, okay, no guns on except for Billy on TV, and that's it. So so that'll be nice to see them come back. Because I don't. What were you? What was your feeling on Gun Club?
A lot of potential. You know, two good looking, young guys. They got the heritage with their father, Billy Gunn. Solid in ring work. Just needs more time in front of the people and
Mhm.
more
They were
opportunities.
tag champions. How
They
did you
were.
feel about being tag champion?
I thought they were fine. I mean, I didn't think that they were blowing up the world, but I thought they were good tag champions.
Yeah,
I
because a
think
lot
I
of
think
people were like, "Oh, why are the Guns the tag champions?" But I feel like when they won the titles, JPJ and I have talked about this. Um, we feel like once they won the titles, it actually elevated them
yeah.
more, and especially when they were, like, starting to steal FTR moves and stuff, I think it added to their characters and actually, enhanced their likability with the crowd because once they
Then
were
one
packed
ass boy tweet later
into
from Danhausen, and they're a joke. Uh,
yeah, it's like they were a joke previously, and then they won the titles, and people
yeah.
started taking them seriously. And, once they were integrated into, Bullet Club Gold, or now the Bang Bang Gang, because they don't call them Bullet Club Gold anymore for some reason, um, I think that was like, okay, like, if they had been at that level before they won the tag titles, I think the tag title run would have been seen more favorably.
Sure. I agree.
So,
I don't disagree.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
I mean,
I think
I'm excited to see them back. I
yeah,
think
me too.
I think AEW television is better with the Gun Club on it.
Yes, I agree. So then we got the main event of Mercedes Moné versus Yuka Sakazaki. Now, I am going to say this, and I've said this before, so it's not like this is a surprise. I am not a big New Japan guy. I I
Hmm.
I don't really. I did watch the New Japan Strong show that happened a couple weeks ago. Um, I was gonna watch along with that. That was actually fun. I enjoyed watching that match, that show. Um, I don't go watching. I don't have a subscription to New Japan World. I'm not really in tune with a lot of the New Japan storylines. So, like, when Forbidden Door comes around, I went to Forbidden Door last year. I had a
Okay.
fun. I enjoyed it, but I'm not, like, diehard New Japan fan popping for every single person that comes out. Like, even to be honest with you, Tanahashi, as legendary as Tanahashi is, Tanahashi and me,
Yeah, no, I get it.
it's not like I'm
I feel the
not.
same way.
Yeah, so Yuka Sakazaki is a really good wrestler. I enjoy her wrestling, but she doesn't do anything for me. So as much as I was
Yeah.
happy, I was happy that the women main evented. As much as I was happy that they main evented, I felt like the opener and the closer should have been switched, because I feel like the angle with Kenny Omega, and that felt like a closing angle more than just ending the show with Mercedes and all her titles. You know? Like,
Yeah.
it didn't hit with me the way that I think AEW wants it to hit with people who watch their shows, because it from what I've seen, AEW is driven to, like, always have a New Japan presence in some way, shape, or form, whether it be with Mina Shirakawa, whether it be with Yuka Sakazaki, whether it be with, oh my god, Shibata, like, who is actually a part of AEW, not just New Japan. Um, I just don't have any they don't draw me the way that it would for some, AEW diehards who do follow New Japan, who are in tune with a lot of what that company is doing, and, like, really appreciate Forbidden Door for what Forbidden Door is. I just see Forbidden Door as a pay-per-view with
Yeah.
wrestlers who happen to be part of New Japan. Okay.
I am not big into New Japan either. I do think that, I mean, I hate to use the word overrated, but amongst American wrestling fans, too much credit is given to New Japan about the caliber of talent of their stars. Um, Again, I feel bad saying it like this because I'm not in the world of professional wrestling. So to criticize someone's actual work is one thing. If this was an indie show, if this was MLW, even if it was NWA, I would give more passes. But I just thought Yuka Mercedes was just not a good match. And I will argue that the people in the arena also agreed with me, because after that match ended, that final shot of Mercedes holding her belts or holding the belt in the air, whatever, you can look at every single face in the front couple rows, and it's the same face that we're both making right now. That's it. No excitement. No, it just, it's 2025. Yes, women wrestlers deserve more of a chance, but at the same time, and this is a disagreement I've had, and I'm going to just bring in WWE for a second. When you have people like Candice LeRae in a War Games match, or somebody like Alexa Bliss hitting the ropes, there's they don't weigh that much to where you can throw them in the ropes and they should be bouncing right off of it. Theoretically, first off, going back to the silliness, wrestlers hitting the ropes and then running back, yeah, that's always been
Yeah.
kind of silly and logical situation. But when you're watching women the size of Mercedes, like Yuka, like Candice LeRae, like Alexa Bliss, like Liv Morgan, when somebody throws them into the rope, why don't you just grab onto the rope? Because you're not going that fast or that hard. Like, it's when you throw Candice LeRae, when you throw Mercedes Monet. Well, yeah, when you throw Mercedes Benz, when you're Mark Henry and you can
Yeah,
throw a Mercedes Benz,
right.
when you're Mercedes Monet and you hit a steel cage, it doesn't make that same noise that somebody like Drew McIntyre hits, because you got all that force behind. I wrote down two tiny women botching moves. That was my takeaway. Two tiny women botching moves.
I feel like this match was a Mercedes has had mostly good matches in her AEW run. In my opinion, the matches with Britt Baker were not good.
No,
I think maybe it was only one match or two matches. I don't remember now. But regardless of whether there was one or two, they were not good. And I think that it picked up for her, especially after the Chris Statlander matches. That she had more than one match, I remember. Those matches were really good, and then I didn't watch the match in New Japan that happened at the end of last year. But everyone was raving about that. So to the point, that was like in a top 5 spot for a lot of people who watched that and follow New Japan. So I know that Mercedes has great matches, but her opponent really dictates the way it's going to go. And with Yuka here, like I said, I like Yuka Sakazaki from what I've seen of her in AEW because I don't really see her anywhere else except for when she's on AEW because I'm not watching New Japan regularly. Or Stardom. I think it's Stardom that she's on. It just doesn't resonate with me, and it's not like you mentioned. I also don't think it's translating with the crowds as much as it maybe did a couple of years ago, back when AEW was still the hot new thing. Because when AEW was the hot new thing, that was the lapsed WWE fans just really checking out WWE because we were all pre-programmed to do it. And finally, there was this like new cool thing, this new major wrestling promotion with all these top stars, really from New Japan, like the Bucks and Kenny Omega, and now later on with Will Ospreay and Takeshita and Shibata, like people who really made more of a name outside of the American wrestling stratosphere, like Ospreay, like Omega, Okada as well. 3 O's. Interesting. And that was just a funny little thing. I was just like, oh, they all have O's.
But that was also at a time too when it was like practically illegal as a wrestling fan to say anything bad about AEW.
For some people, it kind of still is illegal. It seems. The whole reason why firmly AEW exists is because when we started, I was not watching WWE anymore, and I was strictly AEW, and I was a diehard. Even though it had a lot of the New Japan lore, and I really didn't understand a lot of it, but I bought in on the vision, and I was riding the train. I was right there. I went to every single Grand Slam here in New York. I've gone to every single show within my vicinity. I've gone up to Albany for shows. I went to Pittsburgh for the 5-year anniversary show, which is the shirt that I'm wearing right now. I've traveled legitimately. I never gotten on a plane and gone to like Texas or California, but like I've driven within my vicinity 7 hours now. That's Pittsburgh. It's 7 hours away from me. I've driven long distance to go to AEW shows. It's really in the last 5 months or so, ever since this show, really, around, I would say, since the 5-year anniversary show, my feelings for AEW started going downhill. While, funny enough, earlier in the year, JPJ's feelings for AEW were going downhill, and I was being more positive about it. Then, once the 5-year anniversary show happened, I kind of started experiencing my first real decline with AEW, and I've really not recovered ever since. And I don't know if it's that this is like now the honeymoon period wore off, and my
Mhm.
honeymoon period was 5 years. And now it's just like, oh well, you know what? It's at the point now where now I'm kind of more critical than positive about a lot of things that are going on. While still, I mean, and I am still enjoying the show, and I still do, for the most part. I'll say I enjoy watching Dynamite more than SmackDown, but I do kind of enjoy Raw more lately as like a. I would say if I had to list the 4 major shows in a week, I would say Raw, Dynamite, SmackDown, Collision. That would be
And you're not
like
taking
my.
NXT into consideration.
And no, I don't watch NXT.
Okay,
That's
that's fair.
do
Hey,
you?
that's fair. It's fast forward with me too. It's so hard to watch everything. To where
Yeah.
I don't watch I can't watch Collision. I'm lucky if I can watch SmackDown. I take that as, thing. I'm usually able to watch Raw. That's usually the thing I'm able to watch. Everything else is, I mean, shit, dude, I got 3 kids. I'm on the road a lot with comedy. If I don't
Mhm.
have time, I don't have time. So a lot of it is record, watch what you can, catch up on YouTube, you know, put the pieces together from there.
Right.
And hope that you're not missing too much of what happened. Then it's listen to Corny, listen to Bruce Pritchard, listen to Eric Bischoff, listen to Love Wrestling. Ever since I'll say that Pluggo found me on TikTok, and then I asked me to be on Between Two Beards, and since finding, oh, what's this Love Wrestling, and finding this whole other avenue of people that love wrestling,
Mhm.
so to say. Uh, um, yeah, it's there's way too much wrestling. TNA, like I think I made that joke on either Firmly WWE or Firmly AEW. I don't remember which one, where I was like, you're gonna pretend to watch TNA just like the rest of us pretend to watch TNA. Okay. Like, because I don't know anyone who actually Thursday nights, oh, I can't go, Thursday nights are the night I watch TNA. I don't know a single person that does that.
I know people who do it because they cover it for Fightful and for other outlets, a couple of other places out there, but
Yeah.
it's
And that's
not
not me
really.
trying to bash TNA. That's just me saying,
Yeah.
hey, you're clearly the number 3 company, and number 1 and number 2 are taking up so much of our time, and I barely sometimes have time for number 1. I barely sometimes have time for number 1's number 1, let alone their number 2 and number 3.
Scott, you're not wrong there because I have the original, and not the original, the redone, the one that like Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano
Yeah.
and Adam Cole, that version of the NXT title. I have that title for a reason because I do also agree with you. Sometimes the black and gold era of NXT,
Yeah.
that was the best show WWE was putting out on a weekly basis for
Yeah, I'm
quite some
looking at
time.
Scott's message here. Yeah, I mean, NXT Black and Gold, especially that 1 hour on the WWE network every week,
Yeah,
was the easiest wrestling program to watch.
it was. It really was. Um, and I have a fondness for that era of NXT. It was that 2.0 thing just ruined it for me. So I haven't watched it since. I mean, I've not that I've not watched it at all. I've seen bits and pieces.
Consistently
I am a
watching, paying
fan.
attention. Yeah,
Yeah, from Twitter and people who talk about it because you know it. I'm on Twitter. I'm on social media. I'm in the know without having to watch it regularly.
sure. I get that.
So so that's really like my relationship with NXT and TNA also because I don't watch TNA. But we'll see TNA people more integrated these days now that they've partnered with WWE. So good for them. I'm glad for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I absolutely 100% agree. There is too much wrestling. And 2 weeks ago, JPJ was like, man, I don't know if I've ever done a show with someone who hates wrestling as much, on a wrestling podcast as much as I do with Drew. And it's not that I hate wrestling. I just like, I have, and I'm, this is going to sound degrading, and I promise you it's not my intention.
Hmm.
I have a life,
I get it.
and I don't have time all the time to be dedicating the amount of time needed for wrestling for how much there is. So I cannot wait for SmackDown to go back to 2 hours because I don't like that it's 3 hours at all.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I'm just throwing this out there. If the NWA's current product had a 3 hour long show, could you imagine what that would possibly
I
look
don't even
like?
know who's currently in the NWA product to
I think is EC3. No, Tom Latimer
mm,
is NWA champion. I was
okay.
so excited when NWA came back in 2019, and Corny was doing commentary for him and everything. That first season was actually awesome of NWA Power, and then it quickly went downhill after that.
Yeah, that's when Tyrus. Uh,
Yeah,
he killed that promotion for sure. Nobody cared about him being champion.
you killed the brand that was somehow dead and came back to life. You killed it for good, Tyrus.
So I believe that we've gone over 2 hours and 20 minutes, which we're not expecting. But I really
No,
not that I don't not that I wouldn't do this with JPJ all the time, but usually I have to go to work. Today I don't have to go to work early, so I was able to enjoy this time with Dan, and I thank Dan very much for filling in for JPJ. It was an honor to have you here.
thank you for
Um,
having me.
Before we get to the outro and the plugs and whatnot, I do want to quickly say because it was in this, I wasn't tagged in this in the Slack in our Love Wrestling Slack, but I did see it last night, so I do want to point it out. Tonight they are going to be streaming LPW uh, and CWS 21 live on on this YouTube channel, on Love Wrestling's YouTube channel. We are going to be having on Friday, as it says in the ticker right there, LPW 33 Cool Beans on IWTV. That is because Love Wrestling has LPW. For those that may not know, Love Pro Wrestling is based out of Canada. We are a Canadian
Mhm.
brand, but the independent wrestling of LPW is very, very fun, and I highly suggest that you go to IWTV and check us out when we are doing those shows. This Friday, as it says right there, will be LPW 33, the first show of the new year. And of course, on Saturday, we'll have For Exposure. Sunday is the brunch gimmick. Um, so I will let Mr. Dan Brown plug away. Go ahead.
All right. Quick plugs here. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at xdanbrown. Follow me on YouTube at Dan Brown Comedy. Same thing on Facebook at Dan Brown Comedy. You can stream my Dry Bar comedy special on YouTube for free. If you go to Dry Bar's platform, it's called Not Shopping Here Today. On YouTube, they changed it to Every Man Deserves a Batman Wedding. And for you Canada friends out there, I'm just going to plug my friend Annie Beningo. Is going to be doing shows all over the great country of Canada in the month of February. He's going to be doing shows at churches and whatnot. Andy is one of the funniest comedians I've ever known, and also one of the most kind-hearted human beings I've ever met. So it's always good to see something good happening to good people. Other than that, follow away and continue to support Love Wrestling.
Thank you very much. You can follow me, right, as you see here at the Drew Nicholas on Twitter and on Blue Sky. You can follow me also outside of here on Roundtable Pro Wrestling Podcast. You can follow me on I do the super chats and humper chats for Fightful's AEW Collision post shows every Saturday with Rick Creston and Iridian. And of course, here Tuesdays, 10 a.m., Thursdays, 10 a.m., firmly WWE, firmly AEW, with JPJ, who is traveling to the Royal Rumble today. And hope he gets there safe and he has a great time. Dan, once again, thank you very much for joining me. This was an honor. I had a great time with you, and hopefully we can have you on again. That would be great. And until next time,
Send JPJ on more assignments.
hopefully JPJ can do that. Yeah, so this way we can get you on here. Or sometime,
Hopefully.
you know, if you're free
You!
some mornings and you
Let's
just want
send you
to
on an
jump
assignment.
on, or I go on an assignment, if one of us wants to go on
We'll
an
do.
assignment, or we could even, all three of us could be on camera together if you want. Maybe one day if you're free,
I
you
dig
can
it.
come in
I dig it, brother.
and be, yeah, that'll be fun. So, once again, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on Tuesday for Firmly WWE. Until next time, peace out.